Whew. Chris, yes. So we just heard so many beautiful notes and voice, amazing. And a few minutes ago, you were invited into your own little moment of stillness to just simply sit, to open up your ears or open up your eyes and try to notice what perhaps you hadn't been noticing before. And as you sat, I wonder what made its way into your consciousness. Some of you wrote it down. I saw that someone heard their breath. A few of us heard little tiny creaks in those pews, people moving around. Somebody heard some cars going by. And so if your days burst with the notes of life, sometimes just having a little tiny moment to sit in some relative stillness can feel like a real gift. One of my favorite book titles is called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Won't Stop Talking. And as an introvert, I thought for a long time that it was just me and my fellow introverts who longed for the world to hush for just a minute. But as I've been a little more open about talking about my introvertedness and how it shows up in life, I found out that all of you extroverts out there who definitely don't hide, I found out that you all also have your moments when you want the world to just hush for a minute or two. And truly, it feels like unless we intentionally are seeking out space for a little silence and stillness and quiet, our ears are in overdrive mode, constantly processing the clanging of urban life. As I was thinking about listening this week, I was able to go out to my yurt. I'm so lucky to have a beautiful round yurt in my yard. It's off in a back corner away from all the extroverts that also live in my house with me. I never know quite how that happened, but it did. And I sat for a few minutes just trying to be still and open myself up to what sounds were really happening around me. In just 3 minutes, I heard several different types of birds that I longed to be able to identify. I heard the squirrels teasing the cats. I heard multiple planes. I heard children down the street. My neighbors were talking. There was an ice cream truck driving by with the most terrible music. Chris, don't ever listen to it. It would break your heart. And why are there so many ice cream trucks in my neighborhood? Who's buying all that ice cream? I think it's a cover for something. But who knows what? I heard the ticking of my little clock there. There were cars driving by, and yes, a very squeaky car door opening. All of that in just 3 minutes. Usually my yurt feels really quiet. It's secluded. There's this big, rambling, pink Cecil Bruner rose that is in its full glory right now that shields me from all of that stuff going on out there. But when I took the time to just sit and pay attention, I realized how much is going on that I usually don't even hear. My mind has learned to shut out all of those little sounds and details of neighborhood life. And you may have that same experience in your own home or at work. We've learned to shut out the extraneous. Julian Treasure is a sound expert, and there are sound experts in the world doing their thing. And he says that we are losing our listening as a culture, that we're losing our listening because we live in a louder and louder world. Does that ring true for any of you? Certainly seems like it to me. And so one coping mechanism is that we create a range of filters that we carry around with us, and it takes us from all the sound around us just down to what we can pay attention to. And it's what we pay attention to that creates our reality. So like the example from our story for all ages, we listen for what's important to us. In the story in downtown Pasadena, most people could not hear the crickets, but what could they hear? The sound of money hitting the sidewalk. Yes, we'll take it. And what are we missing out on in life because our poor old ears are just plain old overworked? So much coming at them, like a shovel that we hold onto for too long. It's like our ears develop calluses around them, just as a coping mechanism to help us move through this overwhelming amount of noise and information that comes to us each and every day. Barbara Brown Taylor is one of my favorite authors. She is a former Episcopal priest who now teaches world religions at a small liberal arts college in Georgia. And in one of her books, she explores the role of listening and silence in religious life. And she writes, "In silence, we travel back in time to the day before creation, when all being was still part of God's body. It had not yet been said, and silence was the womb in which it slept." I often joke that Unitarian Universalism is really a religion that is so full of words and books. We love to talk. And even some of our hymns are so full of words, we can't quite sing them. We can't get a breath in between all the words. But listening and stillness are crucial components of developing a spiritual life. Sound. The most important prayer in Judaism is a prayer called the Shema, and it's recited every Friday night in Shabbat service. It's the big culminating prayer during Yom Kippur, and it's also the prayer that is said, it's often the last words that someone hears at the end of their life, is the Shema. And so with hands covering our eyes, we chant, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, hear, not speak. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Our friends, the Quakers, who are meeting today just over on Orange Grove, they meet in relative silence. And into their meeting, they bring two intentions. One is they come into that space with heart and mind ready to be in that space. And they also come into that space bringing neither a determination to speak nor bringing a determination to stay silent, open to a message of the Spirit that may or may not come to them in the time that they sit together. And Mark Yaconelli, in his book, Contemplative Youth Ministry, he writes that in many indigenous cultures, when there is a dispirited or disconnected person, that the community asks that person 4 questions. They're asked, where in your life did you stop singing? Where in your life did you stop dancing? Where in your life did you stop telling stories? And where in your life did you stop listening to the silence? What we hear depends on what we're listening for. And what are you listening for in your own life? Do you give yourself the space and time that you need to actually hear it? Last week in worship, we considered the role of creativity in our lives, not so much whether or not we can sing the perfect note or create the perfect wedding cake for someone special in our life, or whether we can cut a straight line with scissors, but how our lives are an unfolding creative process. We are the artist. That each and every one of us engage in these multiple life projects that form the soundscape of our days. And over the last week, a few of you have shared with me some of your own life projects. I've gotten to hear things like, your life project is an activism rooted in your gift of educating and inspiring others. Or that your life project is that you are intent on discovering all of the beautiful and wild places all along the California coast. Or that your creativity is lending a voice to all creation, especially giving voice to the non-human animals among us. And there's so many more of those life projects right here in our room, budding and blossoming and eager to take root in the world. But no matter how fulfilling or satisfying our life projects are, most of us reach a point, do we not, where we just feel really stuck. And we wonder, how did I get here? I had all these dreams and imaginations and hopes when I started on this path, and now, midway through or 3/4 of the way through maybe, I actually don't really understand where I am with it. And I'm wondering if I should go back and start over. I'm wondering if I need to dig in and keep doing things exactly as I'm doing this right now, because maybe it'll change. Maybe I'll just keep kind of moving forward in some way, but we get stuck and don't know how to move out of that place. How do we listen for what's next in our own journey? Parker Palmer is a Quaker writer and activist, teacher, and he writes this: before you tell your life what you intend to do with it, listen for what it intends to do with you. Before you tell your life what truths and values that you have decided to live up to, let your life tell you what truths you embody, what values you represent. And if you feel like you're listening intently, but the message is not coming in, you are not alone. There's a remedy for that. You can practice and cultivate the art of sacred listening. I like to use this book in my own life by a woman named Kay Kendall. She wrote The Sacred Art of Listening, and believe it or not, she runs a listening center. People are so creative. There's a listening center in Long Beach. This little book has 40 short exercises that you can spend like 3 to 10 to 15 minutes with a day if you're wondering how to open yourself up to hear more of what's going on in your life and around you. She has practices for all sorts of things like listening for change, listening for vision, listening for connection, listening for new possibilities. We get so busy rushing from one appointment to the next, from one degree to another, from this thing to that thing. Sometimes it's hard to still and slow down and integrate what just happened, right? Do you ever do that? An integration or praxis, this taking our experience and understanding how that experience impacts our values and beliefs, this praxis is really crucial to us being able to further develop our life projects or our life calling. So I'm going to invite you into a moment of listening for life's possibilities. So just like we did before, take a breath in and exhale. And instead of listening to me, you're going to listen to yourself. Don't worry, the idea of doing a sermon on listening, but me doing almost all the talking, that's not lost on me. So I'll invite you to bring to your mind a recent experience. It could be a milestone experience, like a wedding, or a big birthday, a birth, a death. Your recent experience could just be a movie or a book that really moved your heart. It could be a new person that you met that makes you feel kind of sparkly and glittery and wondrous inside. Or it could be something new that you learned to do. And I just want you to sit for a moment and, as much as possible, bring to mind all the details of whatever that thing is for you. As you hold that experience, you can ask yourself, what really happened in that experience? What was going on? You can ask, what are one or two or three things that I learned from it? You can ask how that experience relates to patterns in your past. Are there ways you grew from that that you can identify? And then, because of that experience, does it open up a what next for you? Some new way of being, or of thinking, or of just being a little bit more kind to yourself even. And as you think about that experience, what do you hear in it that brings you meaning and perhaps new possibilities? Do you hear your own life calling you forward? May your heart and mind be open to hearing all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers, yours and mine and ours. May it be so. And may we sing together, Do You Hear? Number 112. And as your body and mind allow, please rise as we sing together.